In this video, we explain how inflation actually works. Prices didn't suddenly get expensive overnight. Your money quietly became weaker, and most people never noticed it happening. A few years ago, $10 could buy you lunch, coffee, and maybe a snack. Today, the same $10 barely covers the coffee. You didn't change. Your effort didn't drop. Your skills didn't disappear. So what actually happened? This is where inflation comes in. And no, inflation is not just prices going up, because if it were that simple, everyone would understand it. But inflation is much more subtle, much more powerful, and much more personal than most people realize. Inflation is the reason your savings feel smaller every year. It's why your salary increase never feels like enough. And it's why people who own assets seem to get richer while everyone else feels stuck. So let's slow this down and explain inflation the way it actually works. Not with textbook definitions, but with real life. Imagine a small town. There are only 10 houses, and there's only enough food for 10 families. Now imagine everyone in that town suddenly receives extra money, more cash in their pockets, more spending power. But here's the key question. Did the number of houses increase? Did food production suddenly double? No. The amount of stuff stayed the same. Only the amount of money increased. So what happens next? People start bidding against each other. Prices rise, not because sellers are evil, but because demand is higher than supply. That's inflation. Too much money chasing the same amount of goods. And this is where it gets uncomfortable, because inflation doesn't hit everyone equally. When new money enters the economy, it doesn't spread evenly. It flows in specific directions first, usually through governments, banks, corporations, financial markets. The people closest to that money benefit first. They buy assets early, stocks, real estate, businesses. And as prices rise, those assets increase in value. But people far away from the money flow, they feel inflation last, and they feel it the hardest. They see higher rent, higher food prices, higher fuel costs, but their income stays almost the same. This is why inflation feels unfair, because it is. Inflation quietly transfers wealth from savers to spenders, from workers to asset owners, from cash holders to debt holders, and most people don't even realize it's happening. This is the part nobody tells you. Inflation acts like a hidden tax, a tax you never voted for, a tax that doesn't show up on your paycheck, a tax that slowly eats your purchasing power. If inflation is 5% and your savings earn 0%, you are losing money every single year, even if the number in your bank account stays the same. Your money didn't disappear, its value did. Now, you might be wondering, why would governments allow this? The answer is complicated, but it starts with crises. When economies slow down during recessions, pandemics, or financial crashes, governments step in. They spend money to keep businesses alive. They support jobs. They stabilize the system. And often that money is newly created. At first, this feels good. Markets recover. People keep spending. The economy keeps moving. But over time, the side effects appear. Prices rise, savings weaken, living costs increase. And once inflation starts moving, it's hard to stop. This is where central banks enter the picture. Their main job is to control inflation, and the main tool they use is interest rates. When inflation rises too fast, central banks raise interest rates. This makes borrowing more expensive, people spend less, businesses slow down. In theory, this cools inflation, but here's the trade-off. Higher interest rates also slow economic growth. They reduce investment. They can increase unemployment. So central banks are always walking a tightrope. Raise rates too slowly, inflation runs out of control. Raise rates too fast, the economy breaks. There is no perfect solution, only painful choices. And this is why inflation is so hard to manage. It's not just numbers on a chart, it's real people, real lives, real consequences. For someone with assets, inflation can be a tailwind. For someone living paycheck to paycheck, it's devastating. And here's the most important part. Inflation is not random, it's not bad luck, and it's not just how the world works. It's a system effect, a result of how money is created, how it flows, and who gets access to it first. Once you understand that, your entire perspective on money changes. You stop thinking only about income and start thinking about purchasing power. You stop focusing only on saving cash and start focusing on protecting value. This doesn't mean panic, and it doesn't mean fear. It means awareness. Because the people who understand inflation don't get surprised by it. They prepare for it. And that single difference changes everything over time. Inflation will always exist in some form. But ignorance makes it dangerous. Understanding makes it manageable. That's how inflation actually works. And if you want more videos that explain money, economics, and the system behind everyday life in a simple way, subscribe to the channel.